Welcome to another Weekly Huddle YouTube channel video. I am your host, Owen McCullough, and today we're going to be looking at the top 10 prospect fits for the Buffalo Bills in this upcoming draft. These aren't in any particular order. They're just 10 players I think would fit the Bills where they're drafting and what their needs are going into this next season. So first up, we have edge, which is going to be probably my biggest need right now. They just need some pop, some flash, some pass rushing prowess on the edge right now, which they're lacking with their current group of guys in there. They have some starters already. So the three guys I'm targeting are going to be guys that need to either have some time, learning from the starters and don't need to be thrust right into playing time right away. And for one of them, which will be our first guy up, who's JAELAN PHILLIPS, edge out of Miami. He's my number one edge player in this draft class, number 14th overall on my big board. I think he brings to the table athleticism, technique, burst, pass rush, and run defense. Fits any scheme. He's just a perfect athlete. The only hang up with him is he had to retire from football back when he was playing at UCLA due to concussions. He came out of retirement, played for Miami this year, had a phenomenal season, and seems to be better with a second opinion from medicals that he should be good to go. And the reason I think he fits with the Bills is that he gives you that pure pass rusher. He does everything, but he can get to the quarterback fairly consistently. The only problem with him is you have to worry about the injury history and stuff like that, which will let him drop to somewhere like 30. With the current starters you have on the roster, you don't have to play him too much where he'll be getting tired and physically drained and more susceptible to getting injured. You can quickly rotate him out. That's what Sean McDermott likes to do anyway on the D-line. Just get some good rotations, and he'll be able to come in, play, and then you can get him out. Sticking with the Miami Hurricanes, next up we got Gregory ROUSSEAU, edge out of Miami. He ranks second in my edge rusher positional rankings and is number 17 on my big board. ROUSSEAU opted out of the 2020 season after transitioning over from wide receiver to edge, but in 2019 he had 15.5 sacks, mostly from using his freakish athleticism to just out-athletic some tackles and get sacks. He's very, 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 very raw. So I think he's going to drop because of that, and he's perfect for the Bills, who have that stable of starters already in place where you don't have to play him right away. He can be a pass rush specialist where he just goes out there and tries to get to the quarterback using everything he has right now as you build up his technique and his moves. I believe that with the ability to not have to play him right away and with the coaching staff we have, I think we can build him up, and he has potential. His ceiling is the highest of any edge rusher in this draft class. He can become a Myles Garrett type edge rusher if he has the right coaching and is allowed to season a little bit before he becomes an every down starter. And to round out the edges here, I have Joe TRYON, edge out of Washington, another player who opted out of 2020. He is 6'5", 250. He's my number 20th overall player on the board, my third best edge rusher. He's surprisingly quick and fast for the gigantic size he plays at, and he's got power in his hands. He has a few pass rush moves. I just think he's falling because not a lot of people got to see him in 2019, and without 2020 film, he's kind of an unknown commodity. He'll definitely be there at 30. If not, with your second round pick, you can probably grab him. If not trading back into the early second round, pick him up there. He is another guy who probably would need a little bit of seasoning, probably less than ROUSSEAU, but he doesn't have the amazing physical traits ROUSSEAU does, but he still has some freakish athletic ability to move at the size he's at, and already has some pass rush moves where ROUSSEAU is kind of lacking in that field. So if you can't land ROUSSEAU, Joe TRYON would probably be the next best player in that mold where you can put him behind your starters right now and ease him into a workload. Next up is cornerback. This is an area of need that I think is going to be more prevalent in seasons to come. They brought back Levi Wallace this season on a one-year deal, as well as having Dane Jackson, a former 7th-round pick last season, who they believe in to be an outside corner, and in a few games he did play outside corner. He graded decently well by PFF. But I think grabbing someone with, say, you trade out of the first round, early second-round pick with these two guys, I think these guys can give you a higher floor and higher ceiling than both of those other two you already have on the roster. First up, we have Eric Stokes, which he's getting a lot of press right now for running a 4.25 40-yard dash at the House of Athletes combine thing they had. But this isn't the reason to have him on this list. The reason is because I had just finished doing his prospect profile the day of me recording this, and his speed shows up on the film, and he has some decent ball skills, but his biggest trait is he's really good in zone coverage. And the Bills like to play a lot of either press or off-man zone coverage, usually a deep 3, if not cover 4. So he has that speed and click and close ability where he's able to bail out and cover the deep third or deep fourth and carry receivers up there that may have that speed like a Tyreek Hill or DK Metcalf. And if he does get beat coming back down, which he has a little trouble converting down when good route runners beat him at the stem, he has the speed and burst to come down and make a play on the ball even despite them beating him with their route running. And he can catch other people. He's decent at man coverages with the speed itself, but I think him playing in a zone system where he can use his speed to catch up to players that enter his zone or beat him with route running while he's trailing with them, I think he'll benefit the most by playing with that. And I think not being the number one guy right away would also help. Stokes is also my 4th best corner on my board and 37th overall player. Next up, we have another zone-heavy corner coming out of Stanford with PAULSON ADEBO, another target in the mid to early second round. Another player who fits the scheme the Bills are going to set up perfectly. He got hurt at the end of 2019 and opted out of 2020, so people have waited a long time to see him since his 2018 and early 2019 stuff. But back in those time, people with the play he was showing, people thought he could go in the first round, and I still think he has that ability, and I think the 2020 season, taking it off, allows him to heal up from that injury he had in 2019, come back strong, and be able to work on his craft, especially in man coverage. He is very good at identifying his zones and sticking his zones already, but man coverage is a place where he can work on. But I think his size and playmaking ability, being a former receiver, will really help him when he comes to the next NFL level, and I think he'll be able to be an early impact player despite people not really talking about him right now because he hasn't played in such a long time. He is my 7th cornerback on my board and 56th overall. So right in the wheelhouse if the Bills wanted to trade back out of the first round into the beginning of the second round and pick up a corner right there to come in and help push that number 2 spot or even take over as a starter right away. I think he's very pro-ready. Moving on to linebackers, I know some people thought this would be an area of need before the Matt Milano resigning. Now they have resigned him. I still think they can add here just to add depth. Also add someone who can take over for A.J. Klein, whose contract is expiring after this season. A.J. Klein is that strong side linebacker, the Sam, if you will, in that 4-3 defense that the Bills like to run. He is pulled out on the nickel defense on passing downs, which the Bills are running more and more of. They're one of the highest nickel defenses in the league. And I think these 2 players I have selected for them might make that an area where they can run 3 linebackers even in their nickel and have one of their linebackers bump out to be the big nickel because these guys are so athletic. And in one's case, the first case, that is, Pat Werner, linebacker at Ohio State, he is so good in coverage. He played a little bit of safety at Ohio State, came down. He is 6'3", 242 pounds, fits right into that strong side linebacker body mold. He's very good at stacking up blockers, grabbing them, shifting them, looking through past them, and moving them over with his hands. Has the size and length to do it. He's very good at attacking the run, maybe not so much downhill, but he can move side to side. He's very good blitzer, very good in coverage, so he's a 3-down player instantly. And I think you may be able to steal him in the second round, maybe even the third round, because I have him ranked pretty high myself. He's currently my 5th linebacker on my board, as well as the 33rd best player on my big board itself. So if you're able to get him, you should be very excited as a Bills player. He might push A.J. Klein for starting time, if not take over entirely, and have A.J. Klein relegated to backup duties / subbing in on early downs or as a blitzer or something off the edge, something like that. Because Pat Werner is one of the most underrated players in this draft class. Great third down option with that body size. He can also be a great run defender. I don't think enough people are talking about him. And the second guy was someone I had a lot higher hopes for coming into this draft season, but once I finally delved into his tape myself, I wasn't that impressed. Is Dylan Moses, linebacker out of Alabama. He's my 11th linebacker on my board, 87th overall as of right now, but that is subject to change as I'm still going through and working through some of the players. I don't know why he was regarded as this top 15, top 10 player before his ACL tear back in 2019. But he came back, played in 2020, and from everything I see on tape, he's a little grabby in pass coverage. He sometimes doesn't identify the run right, and he struggles to disengage from blockers in the run game. But he's such a freak athlete that if you're able to take a flyer on him in the 4th, 5th round, you could bring him in, and he's more comfortable playing at outside linebacker than a middle linebacker. It's a lot more simple for him, where he can just go out there and be an athlete. You can bring him in, and with the starters you have in place right now at linebacker, he doesn't need to play right away. You can teach him the game and have someone who is a freak athlete like this, who started for 2 seasons, would have been 3 without the injury, who can come in and maybe next year when Klein's gone, take over for that starting Sam role and can stay out there on passing down, similar to Pat Werner, if you teach him the right way to play the coverage or just sending on blitzes and things like that, where he's much better at than playing in coverage. Moving to the offensive side of the ball, I'm looking at running backs right now. The 2 running backs I have, I'm actually kind of confident in to come out this season. I don't think it's as dire of a need as some people think. I think bringing in Matt Breida brought in that veteran presence I think we actually needed instead of drafting another rookie. But if they were to look at drafting another rookie, I think there are 2 skill sets they need to fill, especially if Breida gets cut or we move on from him after the season. Home run hitter and third down back, pass catching wise. Now, there are 2 guys I think you can target in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round if you really wanted to grab a running back who fits those 2 skill sets. First up, and the one I have ranked higher on my board, is Kenneth Gainwell, running back out of Memphis. Gainwell is currently my 42nd overall player and my 4th best running back in the draft class. He frequently was flexed out to the slot and out wide and played a lot of receiver at Memphis while also coming in and taking snaps at running back and wildcat quarterback. He was very well at reading, bursting through, and using patience to find those holes to make big plays. He has the big play speed and has the ability to be out there on third downs, to be a threat in the passing game, so as though people actually have to respect it when the Bills throw it, which is a lot of the time. And the other running back I want to talk about is DEMETRIC FELTON out of UCLA. This is a guy you could pick up in like the 5th or 6th round. He is a weapon. Played wide receiver and running back at UCLA, played wide receiver and running back at the Senior Bowl, got it worked out in both. He is currently my 8th running back on my board, overall at number 86, just behind Dylan Moses. Like I said, he was able to go out there and play wide receiver at the Senior Bowl and cook some of the corners in the one-on-one drills with crisp route running, speed, and great hands. He's more of a wide receiver playing running back than a running back playing wide receiver, if you catch my drift. And the final player on my board is going to be a wide receiver. Now, you must be saying, Owen, wide receiver? The Bills just signed Emmanuel Sanders if they're letting John Brown go. They have young studs in Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie and potentially Isaiah Hodgins. What are you talking about? Now, hear me out. Emmanuel Sanders is over 30. Cole Beasley is over 30. You're going to have to replace those eventually. You might be able to find a slot receiver down the road in free agency or late in the draft, any draft. There's slot receivers every year. But that number 2 receiver might be an area in which you want to draft a guy in like the 5th, 6th, 7th round to be able to develop to become that kind of number 2 player. Now, Gabe Davis is hopefully going to take over that role, but he potentially might be just a guy that fits best at that number 3 role. So you might want to get someone who's young and has traits that you can develop into being the number 2. Is Isaiah Hodgins that guy? Maybe. I'd like to counter, you could pick up a guy like CORNELL Powell out of Clemson and put him on the bench behind your starting 4 or 5 and let him sit there and learn the game before he finally comes out and becomes a contributor to your team. He's number 89 on my board and is currently my 18th receiver I've scouted. He's a 1-year starter at Clemson. He was stuck behind T. Higgins and Mike Williams and all those other guys who were already drafted in the NFL currently. He never really got a chance to go out there and play until this year, which he went out there and he was able to perform and put up some stats with Trevor Lawrence. In his 1 season with actual starts as the number 1 receiver, he had 53 receptions for 882 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's nothing to bat your eyes at. And this is a guy, you can stash him on your offense. He's very raw because he didn't get that much playing time in college. So you put him on there. He doesn't have to play right away at all because you have your starting 4 already set in stone. He can sit on the bench, either take over next year or the year after or however many years down the road when you finally are done filling that number 2 wide receiver role with aging veterans that you think he can step in and take over like he did when he was finally able to come out and play for Clemson. And that'll be it for me. If you think I'm wrong with the needs that the Bills are going to have, drop them in the comments or tweet at us at The Weekly Huddle. We also have a Facebook and Instagram that we run and respond on. Shout out to Andrew, our social media representative, for that. And if you're new here, subscribe because we're having a lot more videos coming out. And once we hit 100 subscribers, we're going to be going and eating some of Buffalo's hottest wings. If you're from the area, Duff's is the place we're going to. So we're trying to hit that goal. Like the video because it helps. And I'm excited to see what the Bills do in this upcoming draft.